9 ways yoga can transform women's health at every stage of life. There is something almost strange about yoga. For some people, it still looks like stretching with better marketing. For others, it feels mystical, vague, or too gentle to matter. And yet, when researchers started looking closely at what regular yoga practice actually does in women's bodies, especially during high-stress phases like menstruation, pregnancy, postpartum recovery, and menopause, the picture became much more interesting. Not magical, not perfect, but undeniably interesting. Because what starts as breathing and movement can end up touching hormones, sleep, mood, pain, balance, blood pressure, and even the way a woman experiences her own body. The real surprise is not that yoga can help. The surprise is how many stages of a woman's life it can follow, adapt to, and support without asking her to become someone else first. Your uploaded outline already points in that direction, especially around hormones, menstruation, pregnancy, postpartum recovery, menopause, and emotional well-being. To understand why yoga matters in women's health, you have to stop thinking of it as a workout category and start seeing it as a mind-body practice with multiple entry points. Yoga blends posture, breath regulation, attention, and in many traditions, meditation. The National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health notes that research suggests yoga may improve stress, balance, sleep, and aspects of mental well-being, while also being helpful for some pain conditions. That does not mean every class, every teacher, or every yoga style produces the same effect. It means yoga is not just exercise with incense. It is a structured way of changing how the nervous system, muscles, breathing, and attention interact. And once you understand that, many of its benefits for women begin to make sense. The first major transformation happens in stress biology. This is where everything starts, because women do not move through life in neat, isolated categories. Hormones, sleep, cycle symptoms, appetite, anxiety, fatigue, irritability, and even pain often overlap. That is why stress matters so much. Yoga appears to help partly because it can shift the body away from a constant state of alarm. Xi summarizes evidence suggesting yoga may help with stress-related physical and psychological symptoms. And that matters because when stress stays high, cortisol remains elevated, sleep often worsens, pain feels louder, cravings get stronger, and emotional resilience thins out. Yoga is not the only way to calm the system, but it is one of the few practices that combines movement, breath, and attention in one place. That is not a small thing. That is a biological interruption of chaos. And once stress starts coming down, the second transformation begins: emotional steadiness. This is where many women first notice yoga in real life, not in lab language. They say they feel less reactive, less flooded, less overwhelmed by things that used to throw them off. That does not mean yoga turns life easy. It means the woman facing life may feel less scattered and more regulated. Xi says yoga can be a helpful addition to treatment for depression and may help anxiety symptoms in some populations, though it also makes clear that evidence is stronger in some contexts than others. That nuance matters. Yoga is not a replacement for appropriate mental health care when someone is severely struggling, but as a supportive practice, especially for difficult life phases, it can be genuinely valuable. Sometimes the biggest gift is not becoming euphoric. Sometimes it is simply not feeling hijacked by your own nervous system all day. Then comes the third transformation, and this is one that makes yoga especially relevant for women: menstrual relief. Period pain, bloating, fatigue, irritability, and lower back discomfort are so common that many women are taught to treat them as background noise. ACOG notes that more than half of women who menstruate have pain for 1 to 2 days each month. That detail matters because it reminds us how normal painful periods are, but also how large the potential audience is for non-pharmacologic support. Your source text emphasizes poses used for pelvic opening, lumbar relief, and calming the mind during menstruation. The practical point is not that yoga erases every symptom. It is that gentle, cycle-aware movement and downregulation may reduce how intense the experience feels, especially when the body is tight, inflamed, and under stress. And perhaps the deeper shift is this: yoga can teach a woman to stop treating her cycle as an interruption and start reading it as information. But the story gets more interesting when yoga enters the fertility conversation. This is the fourth transformation, and it is one that requires honesty. Yoga does not guarantee conception. It does not fix every reproductive problem, and anyone who says otherwise is selling hope too cheaply. But fertility is not just mechanical. It is deeply affected by stress, sleep, emotional strain, and overall health behaviors. Your uploaded material frames yoga as a support tool for women trying to conceive, especially through relaxation, circulation, and hormone-related balance. That framing is reasonable as long as it stays grounded. Yoga may help create a more supportive mental and physiological environment, particularly by reducing stress and improving well-being. And when couples are navigating fertility challenges, that alone can matter more than outsiders realize. Because the body is not the only thing under pressure. The mind is, too. Then pregnancy changes everything. And this is where yoga becomes far more than flexibility. The fifth transformation is prenatal support. ACOG states that physical activity during pregnancy is associated with minimal risks for most women and offers benefits. And it specifically notes that prenatal yoga classes are designed with modified poses for pregnancy. Nksai also says yoga may have health benefits for pregnant women, such as decreasing stress, anxiety, and depression, as long as appropriate precautions are taken. That matters because pregnancy is not just a physical state. It is a neurological, emotional, hormonal, and identity-level transition. The body expands. Sleep changes. Breathing feels different. Fear can rise. Pain can begin in places that used to feel invisible. In that landscape, prenatal yoga can become less about achievement and more about adaptation. It can strengthen the back, improve breath awareness, reduce fear, and help a woman feel like she is participating in her pregnancy rather than just being carried by it. And here is the part almost nobody tells clearly enough. Prenatal yoga is not only about the mother's comfort. It is also about teaching regulation before birth. When a pregnant woman learns to breathe more slowly, move with awareness, and soften muscular tension, she is practicing responses she may call on later during labor and early motherhood. That does not mean labor becomes easy or that yoga promises a certain kind of birth, but it does mean she enters that experience with tools. And tools matter. ACOG's guidance on exercise during pregnancy emphasizes that safe movement supports health during pregnancy, while meta-analytic evidence on prenatal yoga suggests benefits for stress, anxiety, and related psychological symptoms. So even before the baby arrives, yoga can be shaping the emotional climate in which motherhood begins. Then comes the sixth transformation, postpartum recovery. This is one of the most overlooked periods in women's health. Everyone watches the pregnancy. Fewer people stay for the aftermath. ACOG says exercise after pregnancy can help strengthen abdominal muscles, boost energy, improve mood, and support overall recovery. And it notes that pelvic floor exercises can begin in the immediate postpartum period in many cases. Your source text also highlights reconnection with the body, core recovery, and pelvic floor awareness. That matters because postpartum is not just about getting your body back, which is a terrible phrase anyway. It is about rebuilding function, energy, confidence, and trust. Yoga, when adapted properly, can help a woman re-enter her body after birth with less violence and more intelligence. It can remind her that healing is not laziness, that breath is part of strength, and that recovery is not a performance. But postpartum is not just physical. It is emotional, and sometimes brutally so. Sleep deprivation, hormonal shifts, identity shock, feeding stress, loneliness, and a body that no longer feels familiar can all hit at once. This is where yoga's seventh transformation comes in. It creates a structured pause in a season that often has none. Even a short, gentle practice can become less about exercise and more about psychological survival. And that matters because a practice that restores breathing, grounding, and self-contact can interrupt the sense of disappearing into caregiving. Yoga may not replace therapy, sleep, social support, or medical care, but it can be one of the few places where a new mother feels like she exists inside her own body again. And sometimes that is the beginning of everything getting better. Then, just when many women feel the body is changing again in a completely different direction, yoga enters another major stage, menopause. This is the eighth transformation, and the evidence here has become more interesting in recent years. A 2025 systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized trials reported that yoga significantly improved menopausal symptoms, sleep quality, anxiety, depressive symptoms, and blood pressure measures among menopausal women. Earlier reviews found the strongest short-term evidence for psychological symptom relief, with more mixed results for total menopausal symptom burden. The point is not that yoga solves menopause. The point is that it may meaningfully soften parts of the transition, especially sleep, mood, and perceived symptom burden. And for women who do not want, cannot use, or are still deciding about other treatments, that is not a trivial option. Now here comes the twist, because menopause is not only about hot flashes and mood shifts. It is also about long-term risk. Bone loss accelerates. Balance matters more. Falls become more consequential. Metabolic health often becomes harder to manage. This is where the ninth transformation appears. Yoga can support function, balance, and overall movement confidence in aging bodies. Xi notes evidence that yoga can improve balance. More recent exercise reviews in postmenopausal women suggest exercise overall helps mitigate bone loss, though bone density results specific to yoga alone remain more mixed and less definitive than for resistance training. That is exactly why honesty matters here. Yoga may help with balance, posture, and movement quality, which are crucial for fall prevention, but it should not be oversold as a complete bone density solution. In many women, the smartest approach is yoga plus strength training, not yoga instead of strength training. That combination is wiser, stronger, and much more future-proof. And this leads into one more area people often miss: cardiometabolic health. Your source file mentions improvements in blood pressure, glucose regulation, waist circumference, and metabolic health, particularly in later life. The broader evidence is directionally supportive, but should still be phrased carefully. Yoga seems to help some measures of blood pressure, stress load, and health behaviors, and it may support glucose regulation and body awareness as part of an overall healthy lifestyle. But again, it is not a shortcut. It works best when it becomes part of a pattern that also includes sleep, adequate protein, strength work, walking, and sensible eating. Yoga is not a one-tool solution. It is a multiplier. It makes other healthy choices easier to sustain because it improves how you feel inside your own body. And when a woman feels more connected to her body, she often takes better care of it. So what is the practical takeaway from all of this? It is not that every woman needs advanced poses, a perfect practice, or a spiritual rebrand. It is that yoga can be adapted across the female lifespan in ways that are surprisingly relevant. During menstruation, it can support comfort and regulation. During fertility challenges, it can reduce pressure and create steadier ground. In pregnancy, it can support movement, breathing, and emotional calm. After birth, it can help reconnect strength with healing. In menopause, it may ease symptoms, support sleep, and improve movement confidence. Across all of it, it seems especially useful for stress, emotional steadiness, and body awareness. Your source emphasizes the same arc. Yoga is not one moment in a woman's life. It can be a companion through many of them. And maybe that is the most powerful part. Yoga does not ask a woman to wait until she is fixed, thin, calm, flexible, healed, spiritual, or confident. It starts where she is. Tired, hormonal, overwhelmed, recovering, aging, rebuilding, trying again. That is why it lands so differently in women's health. Not because it is trendy, because it is adaptable, because it can meet a woman in multiple versions of herself and still offer something useful. So if this video changed the way you see yoga, share it with a woman who needs this reminder. Give it a like so more people can find it. And tell me in the comments, which stage of women's health do you think yoga supports the most? Periods, fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, menopause, or emotional well-being? I want to know what stood out to you most.